quorum, so why don't we call the meeting to order? Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. Silver Rock Planning Board, if things get out of hand. So we have an agenda. Are there any comments on the order or content of tonight's agenda? And if not, would someone make a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. None opposed? All right, April 17th minutes. We've had a comment, Taylor, which you may or may not have already gotten about the date that's on those.
They're misstated for May 15th instead of April 17th.
Okay. Are there any other comments, recommended changes to the minutes? Okay, so with that one change for the date that is on there to reflect the meeting last month, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All right, any comment? All right, all those in favor? Aye. So from there, we move on to the item number 1, which is the Bennett property rezoning request, which Brian is going to present to us. So in terms of sequence, for those who are attending the meeting, we're going to have a presentation from staff. The planning board will have an opportunity to ask Brian questions at that time. And then after that, the applicant, presumably through here, is free to make a presentation or add any clarifications they want to. The board would ask questions of them, and then we would certainly be welcome to open it up for public comment after those two things have happened. So Brian?
Chris Chapman, Planning Board. Tonight we've got first on the agenda a rezoning case RZ 2025-01. This is a rezoning request of the Bennett property. Mr. Bennett's requesting a rezoning from R15 to Horse Showgrounds HSG. And I pulled up the aerial here showing the two properties in question. It should be in your packet as well. And Mr. Zach Bennett's with us tonight, the actual property owner and the requester. So Zachary and his wife Julie are requesting a rezoning of 2 vacant lots. The lots are existing vacant, adjacent to the residence, which in this reference, this is the residence here on this piece of property. The house sits here now. Address 1194 Laurel Lane. Again, they're requesting R15 single family, which is the current zone, to be changed to Horse Show Grounds. It's lot 5 and 6, and this is part of what's considered the Creeks at Mayview. Was a previous 6-lot subdivision that was subdivided. I think Zach's house was one of the first there, and then this lot right here has a house on as well, which Mr. Bennett does not own that, but it comprises of these lots here. The property is further identified by Watauga County Pen 2807-58, 8719, Lot 5, and then Lot 6, 2807-58, 791, Lot 6. There is an application in your packet from Mr. Bennett for the rezoning, and as requested in the application, his intent and what he wants to do is build a small barn on this property and to be able to keep, and I can let Zach explain, you know, the total intent, but my understanding is a horse or two there on it as well. Property currently borders the Horse Show Grounds and is in keeping with the surroundings. Basically, the board tonight will consider, if rezoned, would have to consider all the proposed uses in the Horse Show Ground zoning district if it's changed. There is a permitted use table that we had sent to you to outline what's currently listed as allowed uses and what would be allowed within the Horseshoe Grounds zoning district. So to begin with, current zoning, again, R15 single family. Just to define the single family zoning district, it's intended to be a low density residential area, which single family residents constitute predominant uses in that area. Multifamily dwellings and mobile homes are typically prohibited in this zoning district. The proposed zoning, which is HSG, the Horseshoe Grounds. The Horseshoe Grounds is a zoning district designed to accommodate equestrian activities such as horse shows, boarding and stables and those types of things. On the zoning map, what's outlined in green is the current Horseshoe Grounds zoning district, which mainly encompasses the horse stables itself. We do have one piece that, two parcels. This parcel here is our municipal public service works building, and this here currently is on R15 is the parking lot associated with the public works building there. Also in your packet, there is a list of the adjacent properties that's bound there, and the list of uses are listed out. Again, Zach Bennett's house is here, R15 single family. This parcel is owned by the Horseshoe Grounds, but is currently still zoned to R15 single family. And this property here is owned by the Horseshoe Grounds itself, but pretty sure it's a separate parcel from the Horseshoe Grounds, but they currently have, I think, areas for horse boarding and pasture land that's used for that. I've also listed out in your packet just some comparison of building height limitations in these districts. Currently in the R15, building heights cannot exceed 35 feet. And that's actually the same as the Horseshoe Grounds, except there is some provisions based on stepping back from the setbacks and things like that may allow you to go to 50 feet there. Zach can probably explain to you what he has in terms of the building there. But the main request that Zach's looking for, R15 currently does not allow any kind of equestrian activities or uses there, stables and those types of things, horses, livestock itself. So the only district that allows that's obviously the Horseshoe Grounds, and that's the reason for the request here to be able to allow that. If you look through your use table, there is very limited uses in the Horseshoe Grounds zoning district. Very specific in the use table that any kind of residential component with this is not allowed as part of this. So it would strictly be Horseshoe Grounds and for stables, horse, livestock uses there. Further in your packet, there is, and this is per ordinance requirements, there is basically a statement, and this is somewhat for the council to consider in their decision of the applicant's required to provide basically a statement for why the rezoning request would be in the best interest of the public or for the public for the public interest there. So there is an email there from Zach Bennett outlining that, and I can let him go further into depth of that if there's any questions there. That's all I have. If there's any questions, the use table is in there to compare some of those uses, and you can kind of compare. Like I said, again, this request is, if rezoned, taking into consideration what all the proposed uses could be there. Not that Zach is looking at one one use of the property to build a barn, but there's a few other little uses in there, and that would come along with this rezoning. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Questions for Brian?
No, what okay, I have to recuse myself from this because I have relations with Zach and wouldn't want to endanger that, so if that's acceptable.
So thank you. Okay. So, questions for Brian before we hear from the applicant?
You need, if he's gonna be recused, y'all need to vote on that.
Okay.
He can't, I mean, you need to vote on that,
Yeah.
and y'all decide whether or not he's.
Okay. So, in the form of a motion, we have a motion to accept GK's request for recusal from this item.
So moved.
Second.
The second came from Brandon. Okay. All right, any discussion? Now, I appreciate GK bringing this up and just wanted to make sure this is a clean, no confusion situation. I do appreciate your bringing that up. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ken.
Really, GK should come in here and sit with us to.
You can't ask any more questions.
I knew you'd kick me off sooner or later.
It doesn't matter.
So, Brian, I do have just one question as from the perspective of the town being an adjacent property owner to this. Understand appreciate you going around the other owners. Does the town have any as an owner, does the town have any objection to this? And is there any problem with the R15 enclave being left if we approve this, or if the town council approves this?
No, we don't. Obviously, we received a letter ourselves. The letter was sent to notification of the adjacent property owners. I did have one property owner stop by and was just inquiring about it. But the town, we don't have any issues with the rezoning.
Okay, and from a planning department standpoint, there's no problem with that R15 enclave being left where the parking lot is, basically. Okay, thank you.
You think the town would consider rezoning theirs at a point? And public maintenance facilities are a permitted use in
Right.
HSG.
Yeah, I'm asked a question. A lot of these properties are separate properties, and maybe a council to combine some of those at some point. But I mean, it could be a question raised.
Okay. Are there any other questions if the applicant would like to provide additional information?
So just real quick, Brian, you did mention that there's other things that come along with it if this ultimately becomes Horseshoe Grounds or it gets rezoned. One of those I just noticed is commercial wireless telecommunication antennas. No concerns at all with that? Are they limited to a certain height, a certain look from a commercial standpoint?
We do have other ordinances in place for those.
Okay.
And those are typically, let me skip over there real quick. Yeah, I mean, most of those are allowed within an R15 zoning district anyway.
Okay.
If not, they would go through a special use process for the one that is listed there.
So it would still have to go through channels. It just couldn't just show up one day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except for the ones that's permitted from a zoning permit standpoint, but there is standards in the ordinance for those.
Ordinance for.
Yeah. But it's allowed, those are allowed in the R15 now.
And town doesn't have any issues with with that at all, correct? And notice was provided.
Right.
And you said you just had one comment, and that was the extent of this. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Yeah, if you don't mind, and just introduce yourself.
Thank you all for seeing me this evening and reviewing this. My name is Zach Bennett. We are longtime residents of Mayview. We bought this property several years ago and built our house on it and whatnot. In reference to the towers and all of that, this is in our backyard and we're not going to do anything that is, we just finished our house, are working on the landscaping and all of that. It's going to be very, very nice. My wife and I are on the board for the horse show. I've spent basically all day today up there with our crews working on stuff, helping out with that. We're just very, very involved with it. Like Brian said, the R15 does not allow horses on it. The horse show grounds is closed during the winter and everything. So for our daughter and whatnot who goes to Blowing Rock, in order to be able to keep a horse, we have to be able to keep it on our property, which under the current zoning, we're not able to. So that's kind of the driving force behind all of this. When we bought this property, as Brian said, it was multiple parcels. We actually tried to buy back the parcel that house got built on in order to prevent it from getting built, but the owner wouldn't sell it, unfortunately. The guy who had bought it from the original owner subdivided it. We've spent years now working with both federal and state agencies, getting all of the creeks that are the headwaters to New Year's Creek back flowing again, getting all of the native species back in. That's actually still an ongoing process, and we're still working on all of that. But at any rate, we're just looking to put a barn back there in the yard and be able to keep a horse for our daughter. That's really it. So, yeah. And just keep it, like Brian said again, from getting subdivided or sold off as another neighborhood in the future or anything. I'm in construction. I don't want to see this as a neighborhood. So that was, one of the reasons we bought it, is to be able to tie it in with the horse show, longer term. The horse show grounds in the one next to the two lots that we're rezoning, that one. We've talked about doing some sort of circle pin type thing out there so that they can train and whatnot, and that's fine with us and everything. So I think it ties in well. It's bordered on 3 sides by the horse show, 1 side by our house, and with its odd shape, it has a 5th side that's obviously bordered by the town and the parking lot. So it doesn't really affect too much. But anyhow, so questions from y'all?
Any questions for Zach?
Mr. Bennett, you just touched on this. I just want, if you could go further into how this is in the public interest. I see how it's in the private interest.
Because I think most people would rather see that kept as open space than a bunch of houses built on it. So I think that's been one of the growing pains of Blowing Rock that I've seen at town council and plenty of other meetings. I think that the horse show is a huge benefit to the town. It brings in, they've done the studies over the years that I don't remember the exact numbers, but it brings in a massive amount of revenue to the town in a very short time. It is something that's gone on for over 100 years. The Green Hill horses go back even before that to the 1800s. So, it's just in keeping with the horse nature of Blowing Rock in general, and preserving land and, continuing that on in perpetuity. So it's really...
I 1,000% agree with the benefits and the greatness of the horse show. That's absolutely in the public interest. But how does this fit into that? Whose interest is this in other than you?
Both. Well, it's in the town's interest because it doesn't become a bunch of houses. It's in a bunch of the residents of the town's interest because they want to be able to come over and ride my daughter's horse and do that type of stuff. So, you know, I'm not real sure what else to say on that one, so.
Would this barn house more than one animal? Would you lease stable space?
No.
Would you, okay.
We would not lease anything. If my wife or I decided to get a horse, we might have
Sure.
a second one in
But
there.
it's not gonna be for leasing for future animals?
No, again, it's our backyard. I don't want a bunch of strangers coming in and out, you know, or having to deal with their horses, frankly.
Right.
So one seems like it would be plenty enough, so.
I would add, the setbacks on horse show grounds, there's no interior setbacks. There is a 30-foot street setback, which would be from Cone Road there. But on the front side of that property here, there is a stream there. So his logical place obviously is back here anyway. But just to let you know, there's no internal setbacks on the horse show grounds, just a street setback.
So if you all sell this property, then do you deed these two parcels of land to the horse shows grounds since they all would be zoned that?
TBD if we ever do go to sell
Sure.
it. I mean, they've expressed interest in it a number of times of, you know, being on the board and everything. They've obviously
Sure.
asked, but I think that it would go along with the house, to answer your question, if we were to sell it, and that would prevent somebody else from developing those lots and putting other houses on them. So, and we've already prevented it that is the main part. This parcel here is also ours, and our driveway goes down that. So in addition to the bigger chunk, our driveway circles through that, so it prevents that lot from being built on also, so for access.
How would can you show me the path, how the horses would get from your barn to the grounds?
They can go. Okay, thanks. They can go a couple of different ways. So the barn would basically be up in this area, like Brian was saying, there's a creek that runs down through here. So we can go through here and cut up onto it, or we can actually go, this property is owned by the horse show grounds as well. So we're looking at there's a creek right through here, and they've been wanting to do a path that leads up into it along the edge of that creek. So chances are we would end up going, you know, up through there to the riding areas. So.
How many, I know you probably don't even have the plan yet, but how many square feet is a typical barn like that?
It would probably be, well, it would be, you know, basically one level. So if it was maybe like 2,800, I'm guessing, something like that. So, I mean, if you did it 40 by 60, that's 2,400. So somewhere 40, 45 by 60 or 70, something like that. And the other thing from our house sits over in here. So this right now is completely open right there to the town, looking at the facilities there. So this will actually, you know, end up blocking some of that view. And the same thing here as you're driving up, so it'll look better, you know, in general.
Just a reminder, this is a straight rezoning request. It's not a site
Right.
plan specific
Right,
request.
just curious.
Yeah, no, good questions. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page that what's requested is a rezoning. It's not about site plan specific details. You can ask that question. I mean, they applied it, so I assume no. The question was just if there's any other legal easement or anything else you think you're going to need to be able to get your access into the horse show grounds.
No, because right now we actually, This parcel, we actually own Cone Road. That was never deeded over to the town. We actually own that. So at any rate, we have, our driveway comes down through here and then somewhere over here, I guess, actually loops around to Cone. So we can get in and out. We can also go over here and go into the horse show that way. These are all of the show paddocks that they turn the horses out in during the show. So whether it's this way or, that way or up that way, we can go straight on to it. So, and obviously it's a straight shot across from the showgrounds onto the Moses Cone trails and everything from there. So.
Any other questions?
If I could just ask one more time, because I'm hoping you can convince me. The horse show grounds themselves, clearly, I'm the public. I can go to the horse show over here. How, as the public, is what you're doing on private property in my interest as the public?
To keep it from being more houses, to keep it as undeveloped space.
Why is it public interest to not
Having-
to prevent development of property?
I would think having green space around the town would be a huge benefit to everyone. So that would be, the horseshoe grounds is a zoning. We're not talking about transferring it over to the horseshoe grounds. We're not talking about anything like that. It's the only zoning classification that allows horses. If R15 allowed horses, frankly, we wouldn't be here right now. But, I would build it on there, include those 2 lots in our existing property, and, then it couldn't be built on. But, that's not the way that the town zoning works. So we're having to, go down the horseshoe grounds route. So.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
All right, so is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak? We are an advisory board, not the town council, but certainly willing to take comment and hear anything you have to say. So just come on up and introduce yourself and your address, if it's
Good
relevant.
afternoon. My name's Gary Jones, and I'm the owner of Lot 2 that they've been referring to, and I support the application. My house looks down on Zach's house, and what I heard today sounds good. A small barn connected to the horse show. I think aesthetically, it will be good. As Mr. Bennett pointed out, putting more houses down there, which Mr. Bennett would be entitled to under the existing zoning, I don't think is good for the aesthetics of the area. So everything I heard, I fully support it.
Thank you.
Can you reference your address just for?
Yeah, I'm 1170 Laurel Lane, right next to Mr. Bennett's driveway, yeah, on that house right there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And neighbors meeting neighbors. That's why I did it just for that. Any other comments from anybody in the audience?
I'm Lee Rockmore, 300 Laurel Park Road, and I support this. It sounds great, but is there any way, what he's doing is great, but is there any way that we can know that going forward, if the property is sold, that it will, what his current use of it and restrictions of it will be maintained
So,
and not broadened?
so if the town council approves this, the zoning will be changed, and irrespective of whether a barn is built and anybody wants to knock down a barn in the future, that zoning goes with the land, and a future owner, just like anywhere else on Laurel or Cone Road, would have to come in and seek a rezoning. Brian can correct me, but we're not dealing with his specific barn request so much as dealing with the changing the zoning map for the whole town. And so that would carry on regardless of who owns the property.
So they could actually have more horses, rent out stables, things like that? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. Can you correct me if I'm saying anything wrong?
You could seek a rezoning.
Anyone
at some
can seek a
point, but
rezoning,
you're-
right?
The
current uses in that zoning district would run with the land.
regardless of ownership. All right. Any other comments from attendees? All right. Comments or questions from the board, among the board? We can entertain a motion.
I have a question for Brian. Any of the uses 18.1 through 18.55, they're permitted. They're permitted R15, except one of them. But to achieve any of those, they would have to go through this process again. Is that correct?
Zoning, the zoning designation that's listed there is handled through staff. Then we review those zoning permits based on the ordinance, this current ordinance. The S designation you see there is the special use process, which comes before you and before council. And if it's blank, it's not allowed.
Would anyone care to make a motion?
Motion to recommend to council that it be approved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions within the board now? Okay, so we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of recommending approval of the requested rezoning, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So Brandon's opposed.
I'm
Everyone
not
else?
opposed.
I'm sorry?
I'm not opposed.
Oh, you were in favor? Okay, sorry. Saw your hand go up. All right, so we're recommending approval of the rezoning. So, thank you.
You can come back.
Well, if Kevin lets you, yeah.
We just afraid he's gonna fall asleep back here.
I wasn't sure Brandon could get through it without me.
All right, something completely different. Consideration of commercial design standard modifications. What you got for us?
Let me pull up. Next item we're going to discuss a little bit, and it's to start discussions with this board. Some of y'all may be aware, maybe all of y'all are aware that we've had a downtown subcommittee for some time. We kind of wrapped things up 3 or 4 months ago with it to begin drafting out ordinance language to move forward. And brought the whole color chart in here, but what you have before you is the actual appendix we've been working on, Appendix F, which is kind of a guide and a supplemental section of the ordinance that helps go along with anything in that ordinance section. So Taylor's been working on Appendix F, which is what you have, and this is for information, just to get a glance. And the reason it's on the agenda tonight is just to get y'all familiar with this, because it'll eventually be coming before you. But Taylor's been working hard on this appendix. Now, where we're at with this is we've got this, and we're trying to correlate the ordinance with this appendix. We do have 2 or 3 more weeks of work to do on the ordinance. Part of what we're doing with that ordinance is trying to break out, and what I mean by the ordinance is commercial appearance standards, community appearance standards. We're trying to break out downtown somewhat separately from the other parts of town, commercial parts, and try to be specific to downtown and what we've been working on. So it's taking some time with that, but we just want to kind of put it out here in front of you. Hope y'all looked at this a little bit. The colors, this was our previous color chart, which applied town-wide. What you have in the back is, staff really narrowed this down to, colors confuse everybody, obviously, it's too many. So the thought was to narrow it down to more neutral, really nature blending colors. That's kind of what we're proposing with that. This would still apply town-wide, but it was kind of initiated from downtown, for the downtown. So moving forward, our intent's to hopefully wrap up the ordinance changes within the next 2 or 3 weeks, and our intent's to bring the draft to you guys for consideration, and then follow right after with the council. So we've been taking in most of the considerations of the Downtown Cup subcommittee when it was complete. So that's what we're trying to incorporate in anything. But just want to kind of get it out there, a little precursor to you that this is where we're at. We're working on it. It's just anytime you get in a whole section or a whole article and start revamping it, because this was town-wide and we're trying to be downtown specific, it's just taking some time. So that's our intent at this point. If you have any questions on the appendix, I'm here, Kevin's here, Taylor. We've all been kind of working on this, so we'd be glad to answer any questions. And there's a few of the folks that Chris and Bill was on the subcommittee there, more familiar with it, but any questions, we'd be glad to give you any direction of where we're at.
Before we open to all questions, what are you looking for us tonight? I heard you one say it's just it for information, or are you looking for feedback on this?
This is for information. If there's any feedback on this, I think from, I guess from the presentable aspect of it, like I said, these are graphics, pictures, things that just help clarify and gives a more visual to the other part of the article. And it helps people, I think, visualize more than just reading the ordinance itself. And we just really didn't have a lot of reference in Appendix F to begin with, but then a lot of this was to direct it towards downtown specifically. And at some point we'll be, if we get into other parts of revamping some of the other commercial areas, this may be amended to break it up as well in the appendix there, to differentiate the two districts. So any feedback is welcome, but other than that, it's information. That's what we're intended to do for the next time.
If there are buildings that currently don't adhere to these particular colors or standards as shown, when they go to do any repainting or revamping or maintenance, are they going to have to be brought up to this current standard, or will they be grandfathered in, so to speak?
They would follow our non-conforming section with
Non-conformance,
improvements.
okay.
They typically you could go back with the same color.
Okay, cool,
Just depending on some time frames and things like that.
sure.
Bill shared some stuff with all of us in Brevard, and I was inspired by the color chart in Brevard. And I was like, this is a good idea to narrow it down. And they narrowed theirs down to areas of town. They had different distinct places. This is downtown, this is the lumber yard, or whatever it was. Taylor did a great job of just narrowing it down from about 230 here to, which there are a lot of colors on that chart that are the same, just a shade off. But I think this color that's been presented to you, you have a slide of that?
The new one?
Yeah. Y'all may not like it. it's just our attempt to say, and we didn't get a lot of negative comments about our colors.
I think it's fabulous.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
great,
Tyler did a great job.
good job.
And it doesn't show up as well there as it does in real life.
So,
That screens, that just does not do its purpose.
so Brian, remind us, Appendix F is applicable to which zoning districts?
It'll be referenced in community appearance standard section or article. Basically, it's a reference in there back to the appendix.
I
It's
understand.
more specific just for that article. Now we have other we've got other appendixes in there for application information, building height, a lot of different things.
Yeah,
It's not answering your question.
That's not what I'm asking. So,
Okay.
It's all commercial,
okay,
all districts.
so this then is saying for all commercial design standards in the entire town, whether it's one of the 3 specific town center ones or just general business, we're no longer having 200, we're reducing the town to 25 colors.
For all,
Yes.
for all commercial areas, yeah.
For commercial structures.
Yeah, I understand.
Now-
I understand it's commercial,
Now,
but-
we would have, as we have done with this color chart, you're within a shade or two, sure. But from a staff perspective, we felt like it needed to be narrow. And that it needed to be included in the ordinance instead of just a book that we would lose sometimes. I know where-
Now, the colors aside, the other parts that we're working on now is being specific to downtown, and even within that downtown, we're being specific with the different districts. Now, as far as, there could be some building and massing scale at some point. The materials are going to be, let me think, materials, hang on. Some of the architectural features, materials, roofs and things like that, those will be broken out individually in each district. That's why it's taking some time just to we're not doing this overall. So we're going to have downtown districts, and then we're going to have the 4 districts, and those will be broken out in further. Colors will obviously apply to everything, but we're going to try to tailor everything else to the specific district.
Will signage be included in this eventually, or will signage remain its own thing?
Signage is separate.
Okay.
Yeah, it has its own article. I would encourage you to go look at that Brevard ordinance. Really, really good. And they're similar to us, and I think in respect to, they've got a lot of different districts. It's got different looks, and that's kind of what we're having to try to accomplish here, to tailor each look. Because, I mean, all 4 of our districts have something different here, along with building heights, setbacks, and all that too. Encourage you to look at that and kind of get familiar with it, but it's a good.
So what we're looking at here, to clarify for me, I'm on the same question that Chris had. So we're looking from Green Park in to the town shops on the Parkway, having these colors. That's all downtown, Ransom Street, Moore Street, and Sunset and everywhere.
Yeah,
So the
include-
colors is in all of the districts.
Except for residential,
Okay,
all of our residential districts,
right. Okay,
which we can't
I
regulate those colors anyway.
Yeah, and then I'm a little bit confused about all of these photos with the other things, and because some of them don't have the right colors, and we talked about that would be something that could be maybe go through a grandfather thing, because they have their own brand at that point, so that's something that we would address.
Yeah.
At the council or something.
That's where we're at, trying to get these two to coincide. There's probably some photos of, I think me and Taylor found today of, one of the changes was previously approved in the last downtown ordinance was stone downtown had to be real stone.
Right.
And we do have a few photos in there that it don't look like it, but it's actually culture stone. So we've got to go through and clean up and make sure it fits every part of the article, yeah.
The commercial project, there are a few commercial projects underway now. Are they, I mean, granted, all this isn't done yet. Are they kind of complying with this in advance, or are they just kind of doing their own thing?
No, they're required, any new project's required to follow our appearance standards.
One that's going on right now then, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
And the appearance is, with the new one that you're trying to put in is not in yet, right?
I'm sorry, I want to go back. What you said makes no sense to me personally. I think things that have been approved under the old ordinance, even if they're in process and not built, they do not have to comply with stuff we're doing now.
Right.
Right. I believe that's the question what he was trying to ask.
What we're proposing, the only thing that was previously proposed was the building heights and the real rock issue and some of the setbacks. That will apply to any commercial project from the adoption date of that ordinance. This is not applicable until it's gone through you, council, and adopted. Sorry, I was confused, my fault, sorry.
I think what Woody was asking
But-
is a project that's under construction. So the lodge down at the old Scotchman, they don't even have to, they actually don't have to meet any standards that were adopted in November because they've already had approval. They will meet those if you're asking that question, but they're already
Gotcha.
have a permit,
That
they're authorized to have a vested right to complete it as designed.
Gotcha.
Same with David Woolley's project on Moore Street. He was approved the same night that we approved the original draft of the downtown, the new districts and building heights. He was approved at the same time. His project met the project.
It's all based on your project approval date and what ordinance is in effect at the time that you have to follow.
Yeah, I just want to make sure there was at least an effort until this is all passed, an effort on new commercial projects to get them to sort of comply.
Well, and staff will, a lot of times when a developer comes in, staff will give them a heads up, maybe what's coming down the pipeline and, encourage them to, hey, this may be in favor to do something we're looking at. But they're not required to, they're just required what's in place at the time.
What about the Shops on the Parkway project? It was tabled not,
It was tabled, not withdrawn.
okay, so they would adhere to the standards that their permit was pulled?
When-
Okay, all right, I'm tracking.
When the permit application was submitted is their timeframe.
Okay.
GK, I interrupted you just to go back. to
No,
the discussion.
that was the question I was concerned about.
So there'll be a lot of changes coming before you. And a lot of them based on the work that was done over the past year. We'd hope to get it out sooner, but we're here and we're still a few weeks away.
So just one comment, I think the quality of the material that has been presented to us is great. Thank you again for all the work through the subcommittee and now on this, Taylor. Personal view on this, obviously this ends up in front of council regardless, it is a very, 25 colors, even allowing for shades off the edges of it seems inadequate for the town. In my opinion, we're not trying to brand the town as a unified thing. So I could have understood this very well if it was Town Center East and West, like okay, but I personally would have even thought that having more blues as an example than the couple that are at least in this printout. Could make sense for Town
Specific
Center
to down,
could make sense for Town Center Sunset, much less regardless of what's out on 321. And, again, the concept of the bigger chart is that those colors are not all primary facade colors. There's trim colors that are on that chart. There's accents. So my personal view is where I think one of the things we heard at multiple points was part of the charm of Blowing Rock is in the differences. And I think we talked a lot about height and obviously didn't reach unanimous opinion about that, but as an example of having short and tall is good, right? We didn't want a homogeneous height. To me, I think that the approved color chart that's in our code today complies with that natural blending concept that's in the written part of the code. And again, a more narrow palette on Main Street, sure, I get it.
Maybe
Make that
broader on the
more uniform.
commercial.
So, and I understand there's like, you can love it and it's great. It's just this coming from a different perspective. I think, you know, in many respects, I look at the, like go down Sunset and the differences and hey, here's this red building and, you know, the yellow one right next to it. I think that's really kind of neat. But that's my quick reaction. to this.
And there is a lot of ordinances in their downtowns that, you know, we're a little bit different because we don't have all brick, rock buildings. But there's a lot of ordinances that allow doors to be any color, your awnings to be any color to give it that little bit of an eclectic look. But that's something we can discuss once you get the document in front of you. But yeah, I mean,
I think where I'm coming from too is a more abstracted view of the or approved equivalent language, but I understand what you're saying. And I think that this is a great working document to start with for sure, but I understand exactly what you're saying for this.
Any other comments for Brian? Did we achieve what you wanted, which was just
yeah,
tell us know where you are?
it's
where
just
you're
just a
going?
glance at that, and this is where we're at, and we'll try to get this document out to you ahead of time the best we can, so y'all can really get through it and critique it. So, just giving you a heads up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any old business that we have? In terms of committee report, we do now have a subcommittee, which is going to be meeting soon.
Tuesday.
Not to speak for your subcommittee,
I
but,
think it's Tuesday.
okay. So perhaps in future meetings, we will have updates from said subcommittee. Cool. All right, anything else for today? We're good?
Noticed that the short-term rental bill didn't make the crossover. 291. I think that was in Watauga Democrat this week.
I didn't see that.
So I guess that's a good thing.
There is
Protect the
still a
neighborhood.
couple bills out there for really trying to limit
Yeah.
local government regulation, but
That 675, that big one's still out there.
yeah.
That should be pointed out, the downzoning regulation or statute that they passed is still in effect.
It's still in fact,
But
yeah.
as of now, legally, we cannot downzone. We can't change, we can't limit the colors, we can't lower building height, we can't do any of that. Even under the new statute that they proposed that edits that, it's still, it provides more leeway, but it doesn't completely remove that aspect of the statute. And because I think the session has ended, this is not going to, this new, that may overturn the downsize or the downzoning statute, it's not gonna happen anytime soon. Just so everybody's aware.
Okay, thank you. All right. I'm gonna have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right, everybody in favor of ending the meeting? All right, thank you.